All right, well, let's go ahead and get started here. My name is Josh Carter. I'm going to be serving as the moderator today. I'm the marketing manager here at Hatch, and I'm really excited. This topic is incredibly important today to address that transformation that you need to be making in your business from having that traditional call center set up to more of a contact center where there's more roles and responsibilities. You're engaging leads in different ways, not just over phone. So today it's going to be a really action-packed discussion where we're going to talk about how Matrix made that transformation from call center to contact center. So again, I'm really excited to be having a rock star panel here today. Chris Bache from Hatch, as well as Chris Hove from Grosso University and Matrix Basement Systems. Chris Bache, mind sharing some information about yourself, about Hatch? That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. Not a problem. Josh, thanks for putting this together. Hove, really good to see you. I'll probably call you by your last name since we're both Chris's. Yeah, a little information on me. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Hatch. We're a messaging platform for home improvement and home service businesses, focused on solving specific problems when it comes to things like speed to lead, rehash, customer experience, all that stuff we're really passionate about. And Chris is a partner and Hove's a partner and a user of our platform. So I'm excited to just get in the weeds and talk about like specific strategies that he's using in his business and businesses and what I'm seeing happen in the marketplace, especially when it comes to how call centers are evolving. Even since COVID, there's just been so much change, people working at home versus on-prem and sort of how that all works and how you keep your eyes on it and make it all drive revenue. And I think ultimately drive your, how much your marketing costs you, which is really what it's all about, is how do you drive that cost down? And I think messaging can help do that. So hopefully there's some value I can bring to the story today.
Yeah, no doubt. And Hove, thanks for hopping on. You've got some interesting experience in the space, at Matrix and Grosso. I'm curious to hear a little bit about that before we get started.
Sure. Yeah, on the Grosso side, I deal with the contact center marketing and technology base, which is how I came to know you guys. We've been kind of kicking things back and forth about, maybe we'll use Hash, maybe we won't. And then right at the beginning of COVID, decided that I needed to implement a strategy to dig through, just some of the meat that we had on the bones out there that we couldn't contact through traditional phone calls. So we implemented Hatch, and I think like in the first 30 days, we dug up $1.5 million in rehash business. It was just crazy good. And since then, I think, I don't know, Josh, you tell me, I'm sure you looked at the reports. We're probably creeping up on $7 million worth of net revenue attributable to engagement through Hatch. So pretty sweet stuff over the last, 14 months or so. Anyway, so on the Matrix side, I'm the CMO there. Got a couple of guys that manage the contact center team. Got about 14 people in there. We're pacing probably 60 to 65 million this year in business, and we measure our speed to lead in seconds, not minutes. Right? Some people say you got to do it in less than 1 minute, less than 5 minutes, less than 10 minutes. I'm more like less than 10 seconds if we want to beat everybody. If we want to be able to purchase aggregated leads and make sure those are effective for us. So my role at Matrix is to get the leads into the system and then make sure that they're treated correctly on the front end, and from there make sure that they turn into qualified set appointments for our team.
Beautiful. Thanks, Chris. And a couple folks having a little hard time hearing you, so if you wouldn't mind maybe bringing the mic a little closer, that'd be fantastic.
I brought it a little bit closer. Hopefully that's a little bit better.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yep, that sounds good.
Awesome. Well, yeah, welcome everybody. We got folks all across the board here in different home improvement verticals here, some windows and doors, a lot of interior remodeling folks. I see we've got luxury bath on. We got a couple of bath fitters. So we got some interior remodeling folks, as well as a couple HVAC and plumbing folks on here. So everything that we're going to be talking about today, you guys have a call center. That's why you're on here. These are going to be applicable to you and your vertical. Obviously, Hove's business is basement remodeling, and so some of the examples that we're going to be providing are related specifically to that remodeling vertical. But everything is going to be applicable to you guys in terms of strategy and some of the templates you'll be able to use in your business. So excited for this one. Welcome everybody to today's webinar. Again, here are some companies that we work with. So the strategies that we're sharing today are applicable to your business and have been tried and true and tested across many of these companies. So you're in good hands here. So as we get started, I'm going to launch a poll here. How is your call center communicating with homeowners today? Are you using text, email, phone? You can select multiple answers. This will help us get a sense for how we walk through some of the strategies today as we explore text, email, calling. So you can select multiple answers. I'm curious, what the spread looks like. It looks about even right now as the poll is running. Very cool.
Where do I see the poll answers, Josh?
Poll answers are on the right-hand side under polls and then open.
Okay.
And so
cool.
It looks like a pretty even spread between text, email, and phone. So this is good. All right, cool. Thanks for participating, guys. So looks like a pretty even spread with respect to how you guys are communicating with homeowners today. And somebody also just mentioned in the chat, so like web chat on your site. That's always an effective method of communication as well when folks are on your website. So good stuff there, guys. Today, we're going to be covering what are contact centers versus call centers, why it matters, what that transition is going to look like in your business. The next piece is how to actually set up your team. We can sit here all day and give you, the whys of why you need to be making this transition, but it's going to require some organizational change. And we're going to walk through how Matrix did that. Next is some text and email templates. So we're going to make sure we send this over to you after the webinar is completed, and you guys can use those in your business today. Some really good text and email templates that Hatch put together for you, as well as some really good information about how Matrix actually ended up booking nearly $7 million in annual sales over the last year just through their contact center, doing a couple of specific strategies that rehash and that speed to lead. So should be a great webinar. Thanks everybody for joining us today. And Chris, let's address the elephant in the room.
I found him, guys. I found the elephant. He's in the room. There he is. This is just essentially the reason I put this slide in here is just that I've been in this industry for almost 25 years, helping business owners, and there's been a lot of effort and money put into the infrastructure around call centers and calling customers and how quickly you can call them and measuring that and how long you're on the phone with them. But the elephant in the room is that times have shifted, and it's just been sped up. I read an article yesterday that COVID sped all of this up by 5 years, and there's been a shift toward other methods of communication, and so contact rates on the phone are the worst than they've ever been. But when you do get people on the phone, it's still super valuable. So like, what does all that mean? It doesn't mean you throw out the baby with the bathwater and this beautiful thing that we've all built with these call centers. The idea is just how do you get omni-channel integrated into the journey? And that's the major elephant in the room. How do you do it? How do you do it well? It's not easy, but if you do it well, what really happens? And so that's kind of the stuff I want to talk about. So I got a couple stats, and then Hove, we can sort of go back and forth, I think, here on what you're seeing inside of Matrix business. But these are the stats. Like 97% of consumers are ignoring calls from unknown numbers. So I think about a web form, right? Somebody goes to your website, fills out a form, and you call them. Even if you call them within seconds, if they don't know that number, 97% of the time they ignore it. That's high. That's really, really high. And then Hove, we were just talking about like there's even rules coming around having to introduce yourself. Like, talk about that for a second. So I think that's interesting.
Yes. So there's a protocol called Stir Shaken. It's a bunch of acronyms, but basically what it's doing is it's attempting to eliminate the spoofed robocalls A lot of those are obviously offshore. Some unsavory characters trying to take advantage of being able to spoof caller IDs and things like that. So what this does is there's a company called TransNexus, another one called Newstar, who are kind of working with all of the phone providers to make sure that everybody's listing who they are and validating who they are. If it's an IP phone, they're talking about the originating IP and things like that, so that if it comes from somewhere else, it's not verified anymore. Here's the really crazy thing about this, though, is this isn't just them saying, hey, you should do this. For the last 12 months, the cell providers have been watching how we behave when we see an unknown call. They started marking the likely spam, fraud likely, things like that. And they're trying to see how we react to that as consumers, because the FCC gave them permission starting in June of this year to block those calls at the network level based on their consumer behavior. So when you look at a 97% ignore rate, what do you think that those providers are going to do? They're going to block those at the network level to continue to try to provide the best service possible to their customers. That means that if you don't have this in place already, it's almost too late. So if you need to learn about this, or you need to find a consultant who can help you learn about this and implement these strategies. Otherwise, you're going to see that 97 go to 100.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I mean, we implemented 3 months ago a 10 DLC form. If you're a customer of Hatch, you probably got multiple emails from us where you register your phone number with us, and that registration also includes your DUNS number, your employee identification number, and you're basically telling the carriers that you're a real business, and the reason that you're sending a text was prompted from a customer interaction. And that's how you stay ahead of the game. Love that. I think these other stats are insane too. I mean, 69% of people have said, "Hey, we prefer text over a voice call," and it's a lot of times because we're trying to call during the business day, and people are now at home working and they're not picking up their phones. So even if they do know you, like I do this sometimes, I'll admit my daughter calls me at work, and I text her and say, "Hey, I can't take a call right now. Text me." Like, and that's to even my own kid. So like, what do you think they're going to do, when they submit a form and they're online shopping? And so this other one's crazy, which is 95% of texts are open and read within 3 minutes. And I think all this just is saying that conversations are starting on different channels, even though a lot of them are ending up on phone calls, and that the phone is still super important for some of the qualification processes that we know we have to do as a business, but using messaging or email or all these other vehicles to start the conversation.
And Chris, I think something really important there is that we're augmenting our traditional channels with the omni-channel, right? We're not replacing it, because we know that we can overcome objections. We can sell the value of our product. We can guide people down a road better with our mouth, right? With our words, far easier than we can via text, because somebody can stop a text conversation or an email conversation by simply not replying, right? If they don't like what you said, it can be over, done. And especially if you give them any reason to say, stop contacting me. Theoretically, if they say that, you're now obligated, TCPA would tell you that you're now obligated to stop contacting them through any one of those channels. So we have to be really careful about how soon we pull these omni-channel communication methods into the customer journey. I usually like to wait 24 to 48 hours before I send a first text, because ultimately what can happen is somebody can reply back and say, I'm not interested, even though they're clearly interested. We just have to be really careful about how soon we start contacting people in a way other than the phone. We should still default to that thing that we know works.
Yeah, and I know Matrix has done a heck of a job keeping their CRM data in a place where they can use data to be smart about timing. And so I'm just mentioning that because if I'm thinking about my business and like, how do I start thinking about the customer journey? It starts with data. The more you know about where the customer's at, what they've been through, how well you keep your records and enforce that with all your employees, the better you can actually create this Amazon-like or Apple-like experience. So really cool.
In our call center, I mean, as soon as a lead hits our CRM, we're pulling about 250 data points on these people.
Yep.
Including their credit, their likelihood to buy, their likely sale amount, all that good stuff, matching them with reps. But we're also looking to make sure that we know what kind of a person they are, their persona. And we only bucket people into about 5 personas, but when we start sending out emails and text messages, they're specifically geared to speak to that person in a voice that's familiar to them based on their persona.
Super smart. Love it. So, yeah, what is a contact center? I think we've sort of gone over it, Ho, unless you want to sort of jump in here. But the way that I sort of see this evolution happening, because the majority of our customers do have call centers that are struggling or challenged with implementing what contact centers are. So the way I define it in a sentence is it's multi-touch intelligent automation combined with omni-channel cadences and customer experience strategies. So what are all those big words? Basically, it's knowing when to send messages to people using automation. So you have to rely on humans who forget on different channels based on what you think and what they're telling you is their preferred method of communication, and be strategic about it. Think about the experience of this customer from the time they come in as the lead, like example that we'll show later. If they come in via Facebook, how likely are they to respond to a text message versus a phone call? Just think about that, right? And if they're a Facebook lead, how are they going to want to get quoted? And if they don't buy, how are they going to be wanting to be followed up on? And the chances of them being online shopping around is high. And so use that data to be smart about your customer experience strategy. So I hope that's sort of clear on how I take a bunch of complicated words and simplify it. I don't know, Ho, if you have a different thinking about this.
No, I think you're exactly right. And when you talk about the intelligence, that means not just what you're doing, but how you're doing it. Timing is important. The subject line of an email, we see 2 and 3 point jumps in open rate depending on the subject line that we use in an email. Whether we put a little emoji in the subject line, crazy little stuff like that makes a difference. But you have to A/B test it, and you have to be consistently monitoring that performance. If you see a dip, it's time to A/B test again. It's time to go and read some articles about, what are the best practices to get people to open your emails. There's a lot of information out there as long as you're willing to consistently and continually go and find it and stay just in front of your competitors, right?
Yep.
We don't want to be pushing all the boundaries at once and, start using profanity in our subject lines and things like that. We want to be right out in front of our competition. The good news is in this industry, it's not very hard. This industry is traditionally very tech challenged. It's not difficult to stay out in front of the people that you're competing with, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that was really interesting what you guys mentioned, because a majority of the audience here, when we pulled them in the beginning, are doing all three of these. A majority are actually doing all three of these. So it's interesting because it's not just executing on these, it's coming up with a strategy to test, measure, and then come up with something that works, just like you mentioned with that subject line. So I love that, Hove. That's fantastic. So why does it matter so much right now, Chris?
Well, I just put in some data, guys, that we're seeing across, our 500 plus customers who use our platform. And I just think it's interesting. People use it in different ways that's software. That's the game. Like, people are thinking about, how do I use and implement software? But if done correctly, meaning the strategy matches the technology, matches the reporting and accountability of using it and testing it and staying on top of it, I'm seeing these three things, which is essentially lead conversion rates are improving anywhere from 10 to 50%. And so I'll show you guys an example that I brought to the party today on a customer of ours that thought Facebook was terrible, essentially a terrible lead source for them. And they're buying Facebook leads, and they were able to improve that pretty drastically and make it a profitable lead source. And then we're seeing increased close rates anywhere from 7 to 12%. Those are basically, if you're seeing a 30% close, imagine taking that to 37%. And all of this funnels down to what is the total cost of my marketing and leads. And, I think the goal is to have it under 9%. I mean, that's what I hear on the streets is like where you really want it to be. And Hova, you can probably speak to this. I think you guys run it like 8.5 or something amazing. I don't know what it is, but like, how do you think about what the building this out the proper way and being on top of it sort of does for the business?
Yeah, I mean, we're actually sub 6% consistently now.
Wow.
across the board.
Insane.
And that includes the cost of technology, the cost of people, every single dollar that we spend to get a sales rep to the front door. We're sub 6% on a monthly basis now. Now, thankfully, COVID has treated this industry quite well, so I won't take all the credit for that. But it is possible. And meshing the people, the processes, the technology, so that's scripting, that's how you're communicating with people, how often you're communicating with them. It's super important. And the technology is the way that you leverage that. When I first came into this particular organization, we had this filter that had really, really fine filtration, and we didn't want leads that were, that didn't fit through that filter because we didn't have the technology to leverage being able to contact a bunch of people. What I've found, though, is that when you market, if you're looking for super, super high qualified leads, and you've got this form that's got 20 fields on it, that's exactly what you'll get. You'll get super qualified leads, and they'll be very, very expensive. You're still going to get those same super qualified leads if you open the filter up a little bit. Don't ask them for so much information. Maybe they won't have quite as high of intent, but they might be top of funnel, but it doesn't cost us the same kind of money that it used to get in touch with these people. So I'd rather take all the people that might be interested in it, make the barrier to entry just a little bit lower, and pick up a bunch of other opportunities that other people might have thrown out because it wasn't quite highly qualified enough. We make 8,500 outbound calls per day and probably just as many texts and emails outbound on a daily basis. And it doesn't cost very much.
Yeah, that's so interesting, Ho. I mean, that's essentially a B2B SaaS model that you've applied to the home improvement industry. And it's cutting edge and that's how those companies become hyper growth, is they open up the funnel and then they figure out, using technology, how to get their cost for acquiring that customer low. And if you're able to do that, you can scale. It's pretty cool. Love that.
So obviously all this requires you to create a team around all these processes. I mean, Hove, you were talking about all thousands and thousands of outbound calls a day, sending a same volume of texts and emails. And so I know, Bash, you've got some interesting thoughts around how to actually structure your team around this and who owns what. I mean, that's kind of the challenge here.
Yeah, I mean, this is less an opinion and more of just like an analyzation of sort of our user database, right? So this shows us like who's in the product and who's thinking about doing what Chris said. And here's what we find most of the time is that you have some sort of contact center manager who's in charge of campaign strategies, A/B testing, goals, and accountability, right? So this person is given the owner or VP of sales, somebody comes in and says, hey, listen, we want to get marketing costs down to Chris Hove's amazing 6%. So we need to nail rehash, and we need to get the leads faster and open up the funnel a little bit, but qualify them and do it cheaply, right? And so the contact center is in charge of that sort of strategy. And then they assign reps to become what I would call inbound to go along with those outbound efforts, where they are basically having 4 to 12 people assigned to taking inbound text messages looking for signals of intent. So if somebody says, I would have moved forward, but it was price, that's intent. What are you going to do with that? How are you going to handle it? And I think Chris Hove can walk through how he's done that in his business, but that means they're still shopping. And so price is always a consideration. I don't care what you say, like it is. And so, this contact center's managers taking the strategy and saying, hey, reps, you're in charge of looking for intent to either set another appointment, deal with an issues, or drive revenue yourself. And then we also see what's interesting is other people now using the platform outside of just in the contact center. So now they're pulling in some sales managers or maybe a top sales rep that's able to take an objection and move it to the phone or another in-home and close it. So there's opportunity to take what seems like a price objection, which is actually just a value objection, right, through text messaging and email and all that stuff, and pass it off to your top performers and have them close more deals. So like this is how we're kind of seeing it set up. And then I think Hove's side is probably way more valuable because it's actually in practice what he's done. You want to, yeah.
Yeah. How have you structured the team? It looks like you've got two marketing folks that
Sorry,
sort
I
of
was
own
muted
different
there.
parts of the time of the day.
So confidence and competence are the two factors that we need in agents, right? People who are talking to them, they have a great understanding of the product. They have the ability to be influential. They can use their words well to compel people to see things in the way they want them to be seen. The world's changing a little bit. These people who were great on the phone and were exactly what we needed a year ago may not be able to fit the bill now, because can they put together a compelling sentence in writing? Can they reply to an email, to a text message, to a chat, and be as compelling? So we're looking for a different person now. How's their spelling? How's their grammar? Is their sentence structure the way that you want to portray your company? Because people judge a company based on the communication. And when you write it down, they're dissecting it a lot differently than they were when you were just talking to someone and having a conversation, right? Maybe your grammar's a little off, whatever. We speak in certain ways, but when you write it down, it's completely different. So when you're hiring now, you may want to put some different tests in place. You may want to have a specific words per minute that someone can type before they come into your call center. You may want to do a light grammar test and a spelling test, because it's a different type of person who we're trying to bring in now. They've got a different role than just a call center agent. So the way that we're structured, I've got an overarching purview of the call center, but I don't deal with it day to day. I deal with high-level issues with some of the technology, with implementing new strategies, but I've got two great guys that are in there on a day-to-day basis, leading their teams, telling me where they're having struggles, implementing new things. I lean on them heavily to do a lot of the research and the legwork leading up to implementing new strategies, implementing new technologies, and things like that. And then I interface quite heavily with the sales side as well to make sure that we're lockstep with sales. So if there's something that we're doing in the call center, in the lead generation side, that's lockstep with sales. If there's an issue with certain types of appointments, certain types of leads, that they're being identified, and we're dealing with that on the front end before a sales rep ever gets out there in front of those objections.
Gotcha. Yeah, Chris, that makes sense. And was this always the setup from the get-go, or did it evolve?
Yeah, it's evolved quite a bit. I mean, we've implemented, predictive dialing, omni-channel, it's from Facebook Messenger to on website chatbots, text messaging, email, the personas that I was telling you about. Hatch, obviously, it augments that as well. So yeah, it's evolved a lot. When I first came on, we had a text message program and we had some handsets, and that was it. We had the same CRM, but we didn't have a lot of these other awesome technologies available to us to really leverage our ability to contact people.
Gotcha. Thanks. So Chris, I mean, this is the stuff people can just copy paste, take screenshots. And I know you wanted to bucketize it with respect to the speed to lead and rehash. What is speed to lead? What does that mean?
Well, I know Hove has probably the better definition, but speed to lead, when I hear it from our customers, is the faster I get to a form that's been filled out, or a home advisor lead that I've paid for and I'm fighting against 9 other contractors for, the faster I get to them within seconds, not minutes, the higher likelihood that I am for that customer to become an appointment. That's speed to lead. And to me, it's even a little bit deeper than that, because it's not just how quick, it's on what channel that you communicate with them. And the fact of the matter is that the person that's most communicative, whether you choose phone, text, email, whatever it is, if you're fastest and you're the most communicative and easier to reach, you're going to get that appointment. And I'll show you guys a case study and on just speed to lead. But Hove, do you see it sort of the same way? How do you look at speed to lead?
I mean, if you're anything over 10 seconds and you're competing in one of our markets, we're already on the phone with these people. And so if you're at 1 minute, we're still on the phone. If you're at 2 minutes, we're still on the phone. Maybe after 3 minutes, you have a chance of them picking up the call. But we've already set the appointment for the first available moment for all decision makers to be together. So we're going to be first in the house and last in the house. 35–40% of the time, we're going to walk away with that business before the other company ever gets in there. And that's why we can use these aggregated leads confidently. It used to be that you'd burn a ton of money buying QuinStreet, Home Advisor, Modernize, Facebook leads, PPC, and we treated them all the same. And we hated all the aggregators because we couldn't get in touch with those people simply because somebody else was doing it just a little bit better than us. Simple upfront strategies like you call them, they don't pick up. What do? Just let it go into Netherland and dial it again in an hour? No, hang up the phone and you dial it again right away. Chris, I don't know about you, but if somebody calls me twice in a row, it usually piques my curiosity enough to go, what the heck do they want? So it's a simple strategy, but it's really effective, and not enough people do it.
Yep, that's 100%. And this use case I'm going to shows how in our example, we use a simple technology like webhooks with text messaging and multiple texts in a row on a poor performing lead source. What that actually means, I mean, it cut the cost in half. And now all of a sudden they become profitable and you like them. You're beating out your competitors. So, and what's the second bucket here is rehash. And so I mean, I think about rehash as quoted leads that didn't buy, that should have. And so, taking those and creating a uniformed professional sales follow-up process to figure out what the objection is, and then take that objection and do something with it, whether you set a new appointment or, convert them into a buying customer using a financing tactic. I mean, Hove, is that in line with sort of how, I mean, you've built one of the most incredible rehash programs I've ever seen.
Chris, will you ask me just the question part of that again so I make sure that I actually hit the point?
Yeah, I mean, your rehash program, right? I mean, I think you've built something that's pretty amazing. How do you think about, rehash? Do you think about like I do, which is essentially get in touch with them, surface the objection, and use that to set a new appointment? Or do you think about it totally different?
Yep.
Okay.
No, I mean, for me, we want to qualify it at some point. But the first thing we want to do is get some interest and flesh out the objections. Why didn't you buy? It needs to be funneled down, right? You can't just go back in for the kill. You can't just say, hey, I see we're out to see you, Chris, and if I could save you a little bit of money, you want to move forward? No, it's, hey, we're looking at our, potentially an ability to save you a significant amount of money. If we could do that, would you still be interested in having, continuing this conversation? Once you get a yes there, now you need one of your really solid, strong call center agents dealing with that person, right? Communication from the field is super important. What information did we get back about that appointment? Did they leave any meat on the bones? Is it someone who truly left with the one call close philosophy, which means that we offered them a price that was only good for today? Because if you don't do that, right, you take it down to your minimum pricing, and then you don't take away that initial visit savings that we all use to create urgency for a one call close model. If you don't take that away, usually that significant savings isn't available. So when we say, hey, Chris, if you're interested, I could potentially save you up to $2,000 on your project. Would you like to hear more about that? That $2,000 might not be lower than the lowest price they ever saw when we were out in front of them. It's just maybe $2,000 lower than what we left them with, which was a 30-day price, right?
Yep.
And so it's important to get feedback from the field and know that everybody's actually running the play like that. If they are, then a rehash program is so dang effective because we're being truthful when we say that we can save them $2,000. If you're not in a position to do that, that's a perfect way to piss off your reps and a bunch of customers too, because they get out in front of people with false expectations and they're wasting their time when they should have been on a new opportunity.
Yep. And I'm watching the chat. Everybody's like, I need host template. We got you. We got you. We got the Grosso templates and we see them work. And his reply rates are very, very high. But I think it's what you do after you get that reply, right? And Chris, do you move them to the phone, or do you handle some over text? And then one of the things I hear in the market is we get a killer response rate with Hatch, and then we don't know what to do, or we can't take it to the finish line. Like, how do you turn it? Yeah, how do you turn it to revenue?
I mean, so all I'm trying to do is guide it to a moment in time where we have enough interest to have a true conversation. And so if you look at my templates, they're like, hey, we might be able to save you some money. Do you have time to talk today or tomorrow, right? And they reply, yes. Great. The response to that is, awesome. Today or tomorrow? Today. Cool. It's 3 o'clock now. Would 4 o'clock be good or 5 o'clock be better? Do you want to call me? Do you want me to call you? And you guide it into a preset appointment to talk to that person, right? But you can get pretty far along with people via text. They've decided that this is their preferred method of communication because we certainly have a phone campaign that's trying to do the same thing. But we didn't get them there. So I also will move toward a takeaway, which is, on the sixth message in my cadence, it's, hey, before I take you off the list here, I just want to make sure that you're, definitely not interested in looking at this project again and potentially saving a bunch of money. And then my last message is, hey, taking you off our list now, I'm going to leave you with our phone number just in case at some point in the future you are interested. That's actually the message that gets me the most responses. It's the one where I'm saying, all right, peace, I'm done with you. People don't like that. People don't like you to be done with them.
Yep. That's so cool. All right, Josh, let's move to the speed to lead so folks can sort of look at this and then look at the templates, because I think that's probably the most interesting part of this because it's something folks can take away and implement immediately. So this is a little Facebook lead story that I stole from one of our customers, which is essentially a before and after picture here. On the left-hand side, you can see what Facebook looked like before. They had a 5% conversion rate, which is low. It cost almost $500 for an opportunity, high marketing cost, and the underlying headline of the day was Facebook sucks. And that's what I was hearing with everybody. And this is what Facebook Leads product, which I know a lot of us have tried, and it can be difficult to convert them. Yep. After, however, they implemented some webhook technology, which is instant, grabs the data instantly, and they use text and calling. They didn't abandon calling. They used both. 75% increase in contact rate. Their conversion rate went from 5 to 35%. $210 cost per op. Lower marketing cost. And at the same time, they're building an SMS opt-in marketing list. And I know Hove can speak to this, but when you're buying Facebook inbound leads or any really leads at all, and people are double opting in, you're building assets for your business, okay? You're building data that are assets for your business you can market to later. These are people that say, I am willing to have a conversation with you via email or text message, and you can add them to a list that in 90 days you can text back and say, hey, we never got in touch. Let's chat. And now you've already spent money that you're not paying for it again, except for maybe the low cost of sending a message. So
you can also use this if you're in a business that has multiple products, right?
Yes.
So they get in touch with you about a roof. Hey, sorry, we've already found someone that we're working with on this, and the thing dies. Well, let's say you're having a Memorial Day flash sale. If you've got double opt-in from these people, guess what they're eligible for? They're eligible to hear about the Memorial Day flash sale because they want to hear about things from your business. They've already said yes to it. Versus you just get TCPA compliance is going to get more and more important over the next couple of years. The FCC is going to start cracking down on it harder and harder. My guess is that based on the amount of money that we're spending at the federal level, they're going to need to start levying more and more fines. So they levy huge ones for non-TCPA compliance. So that double opt-in is important for a business growth strategy, but it's also from a risk reduction strategy as well.
Yep. It's like email in the 90s. It will happen. All right. Yep. And so here's the template, guys, the number of touches. If you just want to quickly, Carter, just hit all this for me. Wait, go back to that. Yes. Okay. So the idea, and this is some of what our data is showing, and our goal in the future is to start baking in this data into the product and update you guys when it becomes available. So you can hit a button, say, update my campaigns to best performing. But for today, the way that we're doing that is having these webinars with you guys and trying to update you through us or CS on what actually is working. And this is the Speed to Lead campaign that they use for Facebook. I mean, it's pretty aggressive, which is a text, email, and phone call the moment the lead comes in. The moment it comes in, not 5 10 seconds later, the moment it comes in, and then 2 touches on day 2, a special offer on day 4, and then that famous breakup email on day 5. This is how they went from 5 to 35% conversion. You can jump to the next one, Carter. Here they are written out. I'm not going to read each one of these, but after this webinar, this will be sent to you guys so that you can use them, in your Hatch account if you already have a Hatch account. If not, use them in whatever system you're using today, and then just follow the number of touches, but also follow the content, and it's working really well right now. And then watch it, because it changes and the market changes and people change. And so what works today will always need to be iterated upon. Yep.
Hey, Chris, can I jump into something real quick here with the text messaging?
Please.
One thing that I've tried really hard to do in my particular verticals, our basement division tends to be a more affluent, more tech-savvy customer. Not a big deal how long your text message is. In our bathroom division, it tends to be a little bit older, less tech-savvy customer. And so I stick to 160 characters or less, because they may have an older phone that's not a smartphone where it'll break up messages, right? Because we're sending SMS to these people. And if we're sending SMS to people, that 160 character limit can really make a difference in how well your message is received, because if it comes in a backwards order, or maybe it doesn't deliver exactly properly, you can lose some people there. So just be really careful that if you can stay within 160 characters, you'll get the best response overall from all audiences.
Love it. Great tip. Yep, we see the same thing, especially on web form responses, because typically those are some of your older clientele. Something like Facebook, where they are scrolling through their Facebook news feed and they submit a form right on their mobile phone. Those you can have a little bit more in depth, and we're seeing that you can even schedule appointments over messaging with some of those folks, because they have qualifying questions that you can pretty much take care of in seconds. So that's really great. All right, Carter, you can go past this, because we're going to send it out afterwards, and I'm not going to go through and read each one.
Hey, Chris, something else that we've done that really helps people with the setting appointments and with the Rehash program is
Sure.
to give them a document that they can have on their desktop that has a lot of the very, very popular replies, so that they can just copy and paste it into there. They're not having to type all of it, and they're staying on message and on brand. They're not just free-forming everything.
I love that. And Hove, I'm a little bit embarrassed too, because we have a feature inside of our product called suggestive responses. I got to get with you after this, where you can take those documents and put them in Hatch, and then with a click of a button, they can send them. So they actually don't have to even copy and paste anymore. We've got about 30% of our user base now using it, but this allows you to control some of those early objections. So I think we can help you out there too.
More about that.
Yep.
Good stuff. So let's dive into Rehash. I know there's a lot of different definitions out there. The traditional way is, of course, you quote and then you just lower the price. But obviously times have changed, right? Right, Beish?
I think so. Especially where we're in right now. I mean, like the data showing us that even though people are saying price, sometimes it's not price, it's price to value. Yep. And so there's still like value conversations that need to be had, and you need to have a certain level of rep. I mean, I think Hove is probably the expert on this stuff, just because of what he's built there and knowing how to handle objections. But Hove, do you have anything else that you could share? Because I know that's what I get asked most about, which is like, verbiage and the nuts and bolts behind, like, what do you say and how do you go about it?
So I always like to, when I'm first starting to engage in a Rehash conversation, I want it to sound an awful lot like a customer service call. Because what that's going to allow me to do is allow me to funnel it down to the money. That's all I can control. My product is my product, right? Can't change any of that good stuff. The company's the company. So we need to know that it's about the money, because if it's about the money, we can control that. We can negotiate that. And so it's going to be like, they're interested. Hey, Chris, let me ask you, when Josh was out there talking to you, did he show up on time, and was he professional, and did he put together a solution that works really well for your need? Great. So we solved all your problems. As far as the company, I mean, were you happy with what you heard about Matrix in general? Definitely the kind of company you want.
Oh, Chris, folks are saying they're having a hard time hearing you again. Sorry.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to just switch to different audio here. So I want to distill it down to the money eventually. It's the only thing that we can actually control. So the question becomes more of a customer service, right? Hey, did Chris show up on time, and was he professional? Was he able to put together a solution that worked really well for your needs and solved all your problems? Yes, great. What he told you about Matrix? Did you, definitely find that Matrix is the type of company you certainly want to work with when you do the project? Yes. All right, so let me ask you, what was the reason that you decided not to move forward with it? Oh, we just needed to think about it because it was a big decision. But ultimately, it's the money, right? As soon as we find out that it was the money, now we can get into that negotiating mode with them and say, if I was able to save you a significant amount of money on this project, would you definitely want to move forward with it? And it's super important, especially right now where we have more interest than we do time, to make sure that this person understands that we're not looking to continue the conversation. We're looking to close the conversation, which means, hey, Josh, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here. I'm going to send someone out who can save you some money, make sure that we, did everything down to, the inch, because inches can matter when it comes to the pricing of the product. But I do want to make sure that if we come out there and we can find a fair and affordable solution for you, that you're absolutely ready to move forward on this. Because a new opportunity is a heck of a lot better than a tire kicker who just wants to kick the tires a little bit more, right?
Yep.
And
so
you've got
that way.
Chris, that's amazing. And you've got 2, 3, 4, 5 call center reps that are capable of sort of having that conversation, either text, email, phone, and they're sort of setting expectations. Because your close rate on revisits is up in the 80s, right? I mean, it's through the roof.
80.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's insane.
we also have a project size that we won't go out below, right? We're not going to go out on a $7,000 bathroom and take the risk that that person's not going to move forward when our average ticket is 12.5, right? I'd rather have that rep on a new opportunity, with a 35 to 40% chance of closing that deal at 12.5 than going out and trying to scrape together some pennies to get an $8,000 deal.
Love it.
So Chris Page, we did a survey a few months ago and of contractors that expressed needing help with Rehash. And it looks like a majority of folks still need help rehashing these unsold leads. And this really isn't a surprise, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that number is still high with how much demand is out there at the current moment, but I think traditionally 8 out of 10 people have tried Rehash in some form of fashion and walked away from it over and over again for whatever reason. It just wasn't rinse and repeatable. And I think it's because the timing, like there's never been the timing of the right people, systems, and technology to make it accountable, repeatable, measurable, like all the things you need to do when you do any initiative inside of a business, right? And so, I think we're starting to see the shift there where, I think Hove explained it, where you're professionalizing it and it's accountable and it's a strategy you can measure and A/B test. And if you do that well, then you can kind of, you can knock it out of the park.
100%.
Yeah, I think we talked about this. I mean, folks that do it really, really well are seeing a 7 to 10% increase in their close rate overall. Hove, do you have a sense of what your overall close rate was before you started sort of your rehash strategy versus after?
I mean, I know in dollars what it is.
Yep.
We were seeing, maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of, in a given month, a couple $100,000 in rehash business. We're probably seeing $1 million a month right now, between 800 and $1 million a month, depending on volume.
So you 5x'd it.
A simple little point to keep in mind is, unless there's a specific reason that you have to send the same rep back out, meaning that this project was so complicated that, the same rep absolutely has to go out.
Yep.
Send someone different. Train you. This is as you get better at rehashes, what you can actually do is you can train your sales team to crave that be-back business instead of doing what needs to be done on the first visit. So don't just hand out a rehash to the original rep that went on it. Send somebody else. Because oftentimes there was something that was missed in the connection. Maybe it was rapport, maybe it was a design idea. Maybe it was just the way that they presented the pricing and the value and the financing. So make sure not to just automatically send the same person out there for a few different reasons.
Smart.
Hove, how do you structure commission then with respect to that? Do you give it to the rehash rep, or do you kind of split half and half? Because I'm sure that's a question a lot of people have.
Goes to the rehash rep, and we will give it to the same rep if the conversation comes up that, hey, I loved my time with Josh, and we just weren't quite ready to move forward, but we'd definitely like to have him back out and figure this out. Josh is going to get that one. But if it's just something that we dig up, we don't want Josh's brain to get trained to think that this is going to happen regularly. Because as soon as your brain gets trained that be-back business exists, then you're going to push a little bit softer on the close.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So Chris Bache, this is a very similar setup to the speed to lead type campaign.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of our templates. I mean, I think this is evolving. I'd love to see. Do we have Hove's version of that? People are clamoring for it.
Not in this deck, but we'll certainly, if we can get permission, we can certainly send that out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one nugget that is interesting, and we get pushback from this, and Hove, you might have an interesting take on this, but the data shows. Let's just talk about the data, not our Hatch's opinion or my opinion on this. But the data shows that after 48 hours from the time the person has the quote and doesn't buy, the chances of contacting and then converting that customer start to drop significantly. So, we don't know what happens after 2 days. It could be competition. It could be a life event. It could be, pricing. Who knows what happens? But what we do know is the data shows that the contact rate starts to drop off significantly. And by day 10, it's basically non-existent. And so, I think this is what we have tried to attempt to accomplish here, which is at bare minimum, if a customer gets seen on a Monday and quoted, by Wednesday, they should be quote unquote rehashed or reached out to by the project manager to talk about their experience. And if you start to wait longer than that, your contact rates are going to just die. And that's the name of the game. It's a contact sport. And so to me, what's most important about this visual is that the faster you get in touch with somebody after they get quoted, the better chance you'll have of figuring out why they didn't move forward. And if you can figure that out, then you can put it into a Hove-like process where you can actually turn it into revenue. So that's my little speech on this one. And it's all about what the data is showing. So it's really fascinating.
It is.
There's no reason that you don't start reaching out to them the next day, as long as you characterize it as a customer service follow-up, right? Just want to make sure that they got there and they were professional and they solved your problems, that they gave you a price, all that good stuff, right? So as long as you characterize it that way, you're just building a relationship and you're showing the professionalism of your organization. Until you distill it down to money, you're not actually going in to talk about potentially moving forward. But when you have that aha moment of it was the money, then they appreciate the fact that you now go, oh, well, that's actually maybe something I could help you with. That's the reason I was calling, right? So now you're going, but you didn't start out with that. There has to be, a little bit of flirtation that goes on first to reestablish that relationship.
Yep.
Yeah, this is just an example of Chris Bache. We're showing this multi-touch follow-up. It's oftentimes the most responses you'll get might be after day 2 or day 3. And this is an example where somebody actually bit on a rehash campaign after the second text message.
Yeah, it's interesting. The first one was pretty blunt, which is hey, we were out to see you. You got your quote. We just wanted to understand if there's any reason you decided not to move forward with us. And they ignored that, right? It happens. But the next day, a text went out and basically said, I want to make sure you have all the information you need to make a decision. And I think, and it says, we'd like to earn your business. Can I help? That's an interesting, short, less than 160 character Chris Hove approach. And the person jumped right back in and said, yeah, I got everything I need. I'm waiting for a resolution. The adjuster's here yesterday. I've asked for a second quote, right? But you can see the user jump back in and said, no problem. We get that. let me know a good time to follow up with you. And they told them it should be settled this week. Let's do something next week. I mean, this is the information you need so that you get your marketing costs low and you get your close rates up in my mind. But I don't know, Hove, do you have any thoughts on this conversation here?
I would probably try to move the ball down court a little bit faster than next week. Next week doesn't exist for me. Tomorrow exists and the day after that exists. Because a real salesman's going to run into these people, right? If they've got another quote coming out, like, hey, listen, I know you want to get another quote, but did you love everything about us? Did you love the product? Yeah, they did. Well, then let's just find a way to move forward together. If it's about the money, we can help you with that. It's about affordability. We can help you with that. Move the ball down the court super fast, or let that thing die and move on to the next.
Love it.
So really, Chris Hove, I mean, we talked about the things that you've put in place in terms of the rehash and the speed to lead, 10 seconds or less. What steps have you taken over the past year as you've made that transformation to book these sales, in addition to what you've spoke on already today?
Hatch. I mean, a huge part of it. If you're not paying for the Hatch inbound phone number that points into your call center, do that. Anybody who is using Hatch, it made a huge difference for us with the fact that people can just dial back. It works exceptionally well for the older clientele, right? They don't want to text message you. They're far more likely to try to call you back. So make sure that you've got that in place. It works really well for us. You want to see people clamor for a phone? Watch the Hatch inbound phone number work. Reaching, trying to grab that thing and pick it up, because they know that that's somebody who's super interested in this rehash. And our call center staff makes a ton of money on rehashes. They make 2%. Our average basement ticket is between $50,000 and $70,000. So that's a ton of money that they make.
Oh, it's awesome. I want to work there. That's 2% on 70 grand. That's great.
We've got 4 people in our call center who are going to make 6 figures or more this year. We pay them exceptionally well to do this job. We're spending nearly $500,000 a month in marketing. And so having true professionals in there instead of just, what we used to think of as contact center agents, it's a game changer, a real game changer.
Interesting.